mother, it's time for another episode of Birds with Friends. Just the
duo
of feathery brethren, weathering any season to see the Eagles eating teams like Scrammy's top with cheese. It's Philadelphia. Bo and Zach kicking it cooler than
two.
Until Zach runs off with his valet keys. He's a real nuanced goose. Pull up a branch, get loose. It's time for some juice on some Birds with Friends. The early bird gets the worm, but prefers getting turned like a turn on some Birds with Friends. Bo and Zach coming at you with stats and things flapping.
We are going to rip out the hearts of other podcasts. We are going to bite off their eyeballs. We're going to start every segment watching the scene from The Last of the Mohicans where the guy takes a bite out of the other guy's heart. We may not be good, but we're going to be nasty. We're going to reflect the blue-collar nature of this scene. Hello, everybody, and welcome to Birds with Friends. The four of us here, Bo Wulf, Zach Berman, Marissa Dunn, and the bun in the oven, the Dunn bun.
I didn't even get it when you said it at first until Zach laughed. I'm new to these jokes, okay?
Yeah, we are here to talk about the number one seed in the NFC, the team with a bye, the road to Arizona. We'll go through Philadelphia. The Eagles finally crossing the finish line of the number one seed with a 22-16 win over the New York Giants backups. Davis Webb getting the start against a returning Jalen Hurts. MVP chance to the first offensive play of the game when Jalen Hurts is out there. And after that, really, nothing else mattered. Nothing about this game is going to be memorable in any way, except that Jalen Hurts returned. He played a very cautious game for the very first time in his career. There were no called runs that were not quarterback sneaks. He was willing to slide in situations when he would otherwise lower his shoulder. The play calling was conservative. And all of that was in service of doing what they needed to do to secure the number one seed. And now Jalen Hurts and Lane Johnson and Josh Sweat and all the guys who are 30 years old and more on this team are going to get some extra time to heal up ahead of the divisional playoff round. Zach, for a regular season that has sort of felt like preamble, that this season was always going to come down to the playoffs. And this sort of felt like the inevitable conclusion to the regular season, that they would be the number one seed in the NFC. They have finally gotten there, and now the real season starts.
That's a way to frame it, and given the context of the season, that is true. I don't think we can lose sight of the fact that they're 14-3. They have the best record in the NFL. They have a first-round bye. If you told me that going on the flight to Detroit that night, I would have said, what? Really? And I framed that question to Nick Sirianni the other day, too, because I get that the stakes have been raised. Completely understandable, right? When you have the way the Eagles played this year and the fact that they could have clinched this 3 weeks ago, it makes this somewhat anticlimactic. But it still is relevant that they're a 14-win team, that they have the best record in the NFL, and that they clinched home field. And that's why I think all that mattered tonight, and you alluded to it, was that they won the game and they came out, from what we know, healthy. And I think that those were the only two objectives. And I bring that up because there's a number of people that I've heard from who thought that they needed to look a certain way. They need to enter the postseason with momentum. And
does people not remember 2017?
Yes, and that's my point. I think there's very little correlation to what occurs in this game tonight to what's gonna happen 2 weeks from now, right? There's gonna be they're playing 2 weeks from now. There's a week off anyways. They can recalibrate. They can get healthier. There's gonna be a lot of self-scouting. There's gonna be a lot of scouting the potential opponents. You always want to be improving, but all that mattered today was winning the game, getting Jalen Hurts back, and getting healthy.
Absolutely. And yes, it's true that at the beginning of the season, this would have felt like an over, like really outplaying the expectations, right? I mean, the Eagles have exceeded their Vegas preseason win total more than any other team in the league this year. But I also think that by week 3 of the season, this felt like where this was headed. because
the number one seed
very early on, the expected powers of the NFC very clearly were not what we thought they were. Like the Rams, the Packers, the Bucks. Those teams all came out limping, and there was clearly an opportunity. And what we didn't know in August that we knew very early in September is that Jalen Hurts had taken this leap and that he was here to stay, and that raised the ceiling of the team to a crazy degree. And so it was appropriate that he was back for the game that was going to clinch them the number one seed. And this was not the Jalen Hurts that we have come to see. And if you really want to get nervous and you want to be worrying for 2 weeks, the worry is that, what if Jalen Hurts is going to be, as injured looking and as cautious in the playoffs as he was tonight? I don't think that that's a reasonable concern, because he's not going to play the same way that he played tonight. Even if he is hurting, he's going to be willing to put, himself on the line. But, you saw tonight against this backup Giants defense, they were 1 for 5 in the red zone, right? And part of the reason for that is that they were not utilizing the Jalen Hurts aspect of the running game. They weren't taking advantage of that +1, which is part of the reason they're so good. They have the best red zone offense in the league. But he's got 2 weeks off. He threw the ball fine, I thought. And I think that this was a very adult, smart thing that the Eagles did in this game. They knew that they could win this game by doing the bare minimum. And as you pointed out, Zach, Jalen Hurts, for the first 14 games that he played this season, no matter how well he played, no matter how well the team played, he would say the standard is the standard. There's it wasn't good enough. And yet today, after a game that was not his best, he said, it was good enough.
Everything, his answer to multiple questions was good enough, right? How did he feel? Good enough. How did he play? Good enough. Were you hurting out there? Good enough. Are you going to be 100% in a few weeks? Good enough. Right. That's the way he framed it. And there was a lot that went into getting him to play this week. And I was a bit surprised, frankly, how candid Nick Sirianni was, that Jalen was really hurting out there. Right. When
do you think that was overboard honesty, or a little bit of gamesmanship, looking ahead to the playoffs, making teams think that he's not going to be as aggressive as he usually is?
I don't think it was gamesmanship. Maybe it was like justification. It was back-end justification for the way they called the game, for the way they played tonight. I don't think it was gamesmanship, because he also said he was able to knock off some rust, and it's going to be real valuable for him to get time here to recover. But yeah, so when Nick said that Jalen was really hurting, I actually chimed in for clarification, because I wanted to say really hurting tonight, you meant? And he said, yeah, he's still sore. And Jalen, who's always cryptic about this stuff, kind of alluded to, how hard he had to work to play in this game here. And so this was not the same Jalen Hurts. The analogy that I used in a story that should be up on The Athletic in a few minutes is it's kind of like when your phone's in airplane mode. It still works, but it doesn't have all the features, right?
Ooh, okay.
And it's
tech savvy ZB over here.
Tech savvy to know airplane mode.
Oh, that's your go-to analogy is.
Well, what did Rick Riley say? Never use a line you've written before, or you've read before, you've written before. So you have to.
And then he famously said about 6 years later, never use a line you've read before, you've written before.
And so I had to go back in the well and, find something different. But no, point being that Jalen Hurts.
And a few years after that, he said, never use a line you've written or read before.
Jalen Hurts had and you mentioned the stat. I put it in there. There were no designed runs tonight. I didn't realize it was the first time in his career there were no designed runs, but there were no designed runs tonight. The amount of dropbacks that he had was actually really high, tied for second most this season. I believe 42 dropbacks. But even though he was hit 5 times, sacked 3 times, there were never any like big hits that he didn't expect, and he did a good job anticipating them. Yes, and he got down. There was nothing there that made you cringe. And so
it was his second quickest time to throw of the season, like a 0.01 second longer than the Cardinals game when they had all those quick screens. It was very much like they were calling this game to protect Jalen Hurts.
Yeah. And so that's why him saying good enough, I think, was relevant, because that's what they needed tonight. Like, they just needed good enough. And I know the stakes are raised in 2 weeks, and I know they need to play better in 2 weeks. That's obvious, but they're going to get a better Jalen Hurts in 2 weeks. And Jalen, for those who saw the footage of him arriving at the stadium, it was an awesome shirt. It was the I'm Back shirt. It was a cover of, was it the Chicago Sun-Times or was it a made-up newspaper? I think it was the Chicago Sun-Times, but it looked like, I think it said Sunday Sun-Times maybe. And it was Michael Jordan coming back from retirement the first time.
We're in the 4-5.
Yeah, and it says I'm back, and Jalen,
of course, famous words also spoken by Isaac Sopoaga. No, Haloti Nada.
Haloti Nada. Okay.
Jeez.
Yes. And I don't think it would be really coincidental if that was the top outfit on the in the pile today.
Yeah, he knows what he's doing.
Yeah, he knows what he's doing. Emily always jokes with me, like, why are you wearing that shirt or something? And I said it was literally the top one on the pile, right? Like, I'm not paying attention to what I wore 2 days ago or a month ago or whatever. And I Jalen purposely wore that shirt, and the fact that he was back, that's what mattered the most.
Yeah, I think that's right. And there is going to be some uncertainty about what he looks like in that playoff game. I would imagine that like the messaging ahead of that game is going to be he's 100%. There are no limitations, but I think it will be reasonable to have a little bit of nerves about what he's going to look like. But they did the job that's going to get them extra time for him to rest, and so they got it done. That's what matters. Like nothing else in this game, aside from potential injuries. And I know Nakobe Dean was taken back and looked at one point. We don't have any word on that, but other than that, like this is it. This is what they needed to do, and now things are set up. And so why don't we set up what the playoff picture is? Okay, so the Eagles are the 1 seed, as we know. The 2 seed is the San Francisco 49ers. They will play the 7 seed Seattle Seahawks on Saturday. Seahawks, I think they open as it's 9-point underdogs in this game, which seems a little bit spicy considering it's a third time around matchup. Seahawks have not played super great.
Real quick, can I ask you? I was writing, and as you know, at the stadium, they didn't have the TVs on in front of us. Was that final drive as wild as?
Oh, it was awesome. Dan Campbell and Ben Johnson just crushing it. Fantastic. The really awesome play was the third down little like quick screen and lateral, and then Penei Sewell just buries the guy in the open field.
He had a great block. That was awesome.
Awesome. And then they go for it on 4th and 1.5 to win the game. It's really like it's the perfect Lions victory because they don't even have to. Yeah, they're one of the best 14 teams in the league.
Yeah, and no knock on the Seahawks. You play the full season. The tiebreakers are what they are, and that's what happens. But I mean, the Lions deserve to be in over the Seahawks, in my opinion.
Yeah, and just like the Steelers would be a better team in the playoffs than the Dolphins at this point.
Sure, but that's why
at least the Lions got to knock out the Packers. Like I know it's still not making the playoffs, but I feel like that probably was pretty satisfying to their fans.
It's almost better for them because then their season doesn't end on a loss.
Yeah.
I have a Super Bowl team out already. I picked Chiefs, Packers in the Super Bowl this year.
Yeah, you love those conspiracy theorists. You love your ayahuasca.
You mean 2-time MVP, or 3-time MVP, the last 2 MVP win? Yeah, I thought he was gonna have a good year. I was wrong. I'm sorry to interrupt you though. Go on.
Yeah, you always just side with accomplishment. That's why Russell Wilson you thought was going to be the answer for the Eagles.
I don't back off that.
You don't back off that?
No, I'm not pretending I didn't have that opinion. Is what I'm saying. Sometimes some people pretend that they never said something. I did say that. I thought that about Russell Wilson. I was wrong. Jalen Hurts has been outstanding. Russell Wilson hasn't been.
All right. So yes, the Seahawks open up as 9.5-point favorites for their trip to San Francisco. If they were able to pull off that upset, they would be immediately heading to Philadelphia. We would know that right away. Then on Sunday, you've got the G-Men going to Minnesota for a rematch of a game from a couple weeks ago that ended on a 61-yard game-winning field goal. And they are only 2.5-point underdogs against Minnesota. And if they win that game, they could be coming to Philadelphia for a matchup, presumably the following Sunday. And then on Monday night, you've got the featured attraction, the Cowboys against Tom Brady at Tampa Bay, but the Bucs are 3-point underdogs, Cowboys favored. And if there are no upsets in the two other games, the winner of that game will come to Philadelphia on short rest. And so that's how things set up for the Eagles. How do you feel about that path for the Eagles, Zach?
Navigable. Look, the number 2 seed, which is really good, but their quarterback is a 7th-round pick. It was Mr. Irrelevant this year, right? The Cowboys are going to be tough. The Cowboys are tough, but the Cowboys have a real tough first-round matchup. They've never beaten Tom Brady, right? Tom Brady's undefeated against the Cowboys. And I know the Bucs have been bad this year, and I ate my words with the Packers, but Tom Brady in the playoffs, he's still dangerous. And so I'm fascinated by Monday's game. But yeah, the Eagles, it's like they've already won a playoff game when you have the first round bye. It's even more important in the new playoff setup. And I think Dallas is a really tough team. I've said that. If Dallas is the team they face, that's going to be hard. But going into the year, like you mentioned, the heavyweights in the NFC were the Rams, the defending champions, the Bucs with Tom Brady, the Packers with Aaron Rodgers. And this is not a year where there are heavyweights. And frankly, the heavyweights, if you will, are probably the top 3 seeds outside of the Eagles, because the Eagles earned, when you're 14-3, best record in the NFL, you earn to be in that company. But the Chiefs, the Bills, and probably the Bengals, you would say, are the teams with the best chances of winning the Super Bowl. And so I think that the Eagles don't have to cross any of those teams until the Super Bowl.
Yeah, I mean, the Niners have won 11 games in a row, so
yes,
they deserve a little bit of respect. I think
absolutely
there too. But I also think if you are thinking about it just logically, the Eagles are the most likely team in the NFL to play in the Super Bowl because they don't have to play any of those teams in the AFC, and they get to play 2 games at home. So that is a good position to be in.
I know that and you are right. I've talked up the Niners all season long too, and I think the Niners are a really good team with well coached, outstanding roster. What worries me in the postseason is top quarterbacks. I've always said that, and that I always say that like that's a bold. Yeah. I stopped myself there. Okay.
Third down. You gotta watch out for third downs.
Sorry about that. That was a poor way of framing it.
We're having fun.
But yeah, the those 3 quarterbacks in the AFC are guys who can carry their teams to wins. The Niners, the strength of the team is the team with the Niners, right? It's not the quarterback.
That's right. So water gun to your foot. Who do you think the Eagles are playing in 2 weekends?
Cowboys.
Okay. You going chalk?
Yeah, I'm going chalk.
I think I'm going to say the Giants.
Oh, that would be a layup for. I mean, the Eagles. Yeah. But I'm more or less. I shouldn't frame it that way. Yeah, I think the Eagles would. I think that's the best scenario for the Eagles is playing the Giants.
Better than the Seahawks?
I guess I'm not giving the Seahawks much of a chance, but yeah, I still think better than the Seahawks is the Giants.
Okay. Let's close up a few other loops here that we've been following.
Who do you think, by the way? You think the Giants?
Yeah, that's what I said.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Although I imagine that the Vikings are probably going to win that game by some crazy ending by 1 point. But yeah, I would guess the Giants right now. The New Orleans Saints draft pick that the Eagles hold, that will be number 10 overall in next year's draft. And you know that the Eagles didn't really lose a ton from that loss last week. It would have been number 8 overall, which is a bummer, but you know, nothing crazy. More importantly, it's probably not as valuable as losing, having to play Jalen Hurts in this game, but neither here nor there. And then next year's schedule, Zach, we can say this officially. The Eagles' home games, not in the division, will be against the Arizona Cardinals, the San Francisco 49ers, the Buffalo Bills, the Miami Dolphins, and the Minnesota Vikings. Their away games, the Los Angeles Rams, the New England Patriots, the New York Jets, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, the Kansas City Chiefs. I'm looking at Seahawks. The Kansas City Chiefs. The Kansas City Chiefs and the Seattle Seahawks. That's a tough,
and the Rams.
That's a tough sounding schedule.
I said the Rams.
Oh, you said okay.
Yeah.
Sorry.
I wonder if those Rams Seahawks games will be together.
That's what I was wondering too.
There.
The Eagles requested that in 2017, famously when Bo became a father.
That's right.
Would you guys stay out there?
I certainly would expect to. I mean, I can't speak for the companies, but if you're covering the team,
Marissa, you should come out too, and then we can help out with babysitting.
Yeah, road trip.
Yeah,
that'd
be great.
So there you go. All right, Zach. Why don't we take a little break? Come back. We can talk about other things from this game that mattered. If there are any specific things that you'd like to talk about, and how the birthday party was yesterday.
Say goodbye to last year's outdated, disorganized methods of managing your money and say hello to Rocket Money, the better way to hack your finances in 2023. Rocket Money, formerly known as Truebill, is a personal finance app that finds and cancels your unwanted subscriptions, monitors your spending, and helps you lower your bills, all in one place. Over 80% of people have subscriptions they forget about, like that streaming service you bought to watch just one show on, or that free trial you never even used. Rocket Money will quickly and easily identify your subscriptions for you, so you can stop paying for the ones you don't want. Rocket Money makes canceling subscriptions as easy as a click of the button. Simply find the subscription you don't want and press cancel, and Rocket Money will cancel it for you. No more long hold times with customer service or tedious emailing back and forth. Over 3 million people have used Rocket Money, saving the average person up to $720 a year. Rocket Money is a good way for me to find the unused subscriptions that I forget about, and it allows me to cancel my subscriptions with just a click of the button. Stop throwing your money away, cancel unwanted subscriptions, and manage your expenses the easy way by going to rocketmoney.com/athletic. That's rocketmoney.com/athletic. rocketmoney.com/athletic. Winter mornings are brutal, so here's my tip for tackling the day in comfort. Grab new Tommy John loungewear and take cozy wherever you go. When you start the year in Tommy John, you're that much more comfortable, so you can do everything better. Tommy John loungewear, pajamas, and underwear have dozens of comfort innovations like luxuriously soft tri-blend and micromodal fabrics with 4-way stretch, and no lint balls or fuzz. With over 20 million pairs sold and thousands of 5-star reviews, people love Tommy John. That's why Tommy John doesn't have customers. They have fanatics. Like this Tommy John fanatic who raves, quote, "I bought one pair of loungewear and after wearing them for 2 days, got all the other colors available. The only place I don't wear them is in the shower." Plus, it's all backed by Tommy John's best pair you'll ever wear, or it's free guarantee. Get 20% off your first order at TommyJohn.com/athletic. 20% off right now at TommyJohn.com/athletic. See site for details.
Welcome back. Burns with Friends, Bo, Zach, and Marissa. And let's start with some of the franchise marks that were set in this game, Zach. A.J. Brown needed 9 receiving yards in order to become the all-time leader in receiving yards for a season with an asterisk. And on the first offensive play of the game, he made it happen. He finished with, this is the wrong game book. What am I looking at here? He finished with 4 catches for 95 yards. And he celebrated after the game by wearing a Mike Quick jersey and talking to Mike Quick. So, I mean, Mike Quick's season was still better, but congratulations to A.J. Brown.
I'm sorry, not Reed. Bo is basically Ford Frick.
Did you just call Bo Reed?
Sorry, I was saying something else.
Seahawks. 12:30.
I'll be flown.
Bo is Ford Frick. And the reference, of course, is that Ford Frick was the MLB commissioner when Roger Maris set the home run record. But there were a bunch of like old school people in the media who were complaining that, well, Babe Ruth is the true home run king. And it deserves an asterisk because Babe Ruth is the true home run king. That's what Bo's doing here. I disagree with Bo, right? If you're going to not qualify or put an asterisk next to Mike Quick's record, then how about when Mike Quick surpassed the records of those who played in 14 game seasons or 12 game seasons, right? The reality is you play however many games there are, and there are 17 games. This is what the record is. You can contextualize it, but he set the franchise record, and it should be treated as such. I don't know if Bo can hear me or not.
He's frantically Googling something. I can tell by the look on his face. He's, he's up to something, Zach.
Yeah.
Well, here's the difference.
Yeah, here we go.
One player led the league in receiving yards and accomplished it in a more deflated passing environment
Agree
than
with
the other. His season was better.
I'm not disputing that. That's just like, that's a fair take to have. It's more this idea that these records that were broken today aren't, like they deserve an asterisk or they're illegitimate because.
But they do deserve an asterisk.
But then I'm saying every single record that they like the previous records deserve an asterisk because they broke records that at some point were held during 14 game seasons or 12 game seasons. Right?
Yeah, I would like to. Yeah, I think that's fine that you can say.
So then
you can look at things on a per game basis.
So then the only records that should stand are those that were created at the beginning of football.
No, you look
everything because the league's expanded.
We're all capable of doing simple division.
Okay, so you think it should be per game statistics?
Yeah.
Right? Okay. So
I don't feel like super strongly about the comparison to baseball. I think the 17 to 16 is like a slightly higher increase than 162 over 154. But yeah, I mean, Mike Quick's season was better, but
okay.
I also like the single season team sack record, like 2 years into a 17 game season. Give me a break.
I think that like records should be something that fans should enjoy, that players should, like it shouldn't be, it's almost like the fun police that come in and say, whoa, this record doesn't stand. But
it's also like we're all just gonna like put our hands over our eyes and pretend that they didn't just like that these records aren't just inflated all of a sudden by getting an extra game.
It's the same way. It's the same way I feel about like Hall of Fame debates. Like this person doesn't deserve to be in the Hall of Fame. Why do people feel so like, honestly, these are not real, it's a record. Okay. It's something fun to talk about. You congratulate the person who sets it. And then you move like it shouldn't be like, you shouldn't have such a strong take against someone setting a record. That's my point.
That's not that strong of a take. You're dragging me. You're calling me Ford Frick.
Well, that's literally what Ford Frick did was put an asterisk on it. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think these deserve an asterisk.
Okay.
I don't know. It's not like it's just like a different era. You know what I mean? Like there's like 1961 and like 1920 are a little different than like 2022 and 2019.
I'm just saying everything's context dependent, right? There are more teams in the league now. There's more passing in the league now. Like there's so many ways. Yeah. So look, you can acknowledge that Mike Quick is one of the best, players in Eagles history. Had a terrific season, but then you can also acknowledge that AJ Brown set the Eagles single season record. Like that's an objective. That's an objective. Like we saw it occur. I mean, otherwise it's kind of like saying like election results are illegitimate, right? Like
no, it is not. How dare you? And you are now. This is interesting because this is on this company's podcast. You've just come out against the idea of delegitimizing an election. So you have taken a political stance.
I believe in the sanctity of elections. So yes, just like
Jed Bartlett.
Bo put out so what this is referring to is Bo put out a tweet yesterday. Yeah, yesterday. Well, technically 2 days ago now, Saturday, when a reader or a listener was in the Reagan Airport, the DCA airport, and
shout out to Killer Cal. The guy's getting married soon. Give him a little.
I showed the Washington Monument, said he got the juices flowing, and Bo said, Jed Bartlett Airport, I am a big West Wing fan, and I was going to respond, you should refer to him as President Bartlett. And that is a reference to one of the episodes when he was in the Oval Office and he was talking to his priest, and his priest said, should I call you Jay? I don't know why I'm going down this rabbit hole anyways, but I didn't want to tweet it out because I thought like I didn't want to get political and all that, but it was a reference to that. Anyways, let's circle back to the records.
I think it's less about the asterisks than like the context. Like, can we not just pretend that it's that these are all the same thing? Like, this is only the second year of 17 games. Like, we all remember.
Okay. I'm just saying AJ Brown broke the record.
I just wish he would have done it last week.
Give the guy credit. Yeah.
I'm not giving him credit.
The first thing you said is that it deserves an asterisk. And that it wasn't.
No, I didn't say it deserves an asterisk.
We can rewind the tape.
I did not say it deserves an asterisk. I said, but he did it in an extra game. I don't know. I actually
think if you looked at the transcript of the show, you would hear that term asterisk.
That's
possible
what because you were calling me Frick earlier, and so I was already on the asterisks. The Eagles did not get the sack record, thankfully, because it would have been a 17th game, and we don't want to have that discussion again. But Zach McPherson did get a sack, so that's good. What'd you make of Davis Webb, Zach? Would you like to see more Davis Webb in your life?
Would I like to see more Davis Webb in my life? I imagine he's going to become a coach soon and rise up the ranks. And so, as if I cover this game for a long time, Davis Webb will probably be in my life at some point. Wow.
Just because he's a white quarterback?
No, it has nothing to do with his race. He was offered the quarterback's coach job with the Bills this offseason. That's what it was a reference to.
Was he offered the actual quarterback's coach job and not assistant?
The report was the quarterback's coach job.
That's crazy.
Yeah, but he wanted to keep.
Dad is a coach or something. Is that what they were saying in the broadcast?
Yeah, and his dad didn't want to do the pregame interview.
Oh,
yeah.
And we showed them a few times.
Is it Davis Webb or Webb Davis?
It's Davis Webb.
Yeah, okay.
Davis Webb, who was coached in college by Sonny Dykes, who is playing in the national championship tonight. And I say tonight because it's already 12:41.
Nice.
So what I think of Davis Webb, I give him credit, right? Like first start of his career. First start of his career, played with some Jews. He was into it out there and won me a Swooper prompt. So Terrific ball, don't lie, right there.
That was good.
Yeah,
That's
what it was.
Boston Scott, the giant killer, scores another touchdown. 10 of his career 17 touchdowns have come against the New York Giants, which is just a wild statistic. 9 carries for 54 yards. Miles Sanders, 11 for 33. Kenny Gainwell, 5 for 35. Devontae Smith had 7 catches for 67 yards. Dallas Goedert had 6 for 46. In terms of just like the flow of this game, the Eagles came down the field without much in the way of stopping them early in the first quarter. They did not score in the red zone, but they had a field goal, and then they scored a touchdown after that. I mean, they were up 16-0 at halftime. This game was done and dusted, even though it took an onside kick recovery at the end of the game. This game was never really in doubt.
Mm-hmm.
You think that's fair? Reed Blankenship got run over by Davis Webb at the goal line. That was not a good look.
No, but I mean, credit to Davis Webb. That was like his John Elway moment, right? I thought the game was never in doubt. I thought, the offense. Look, the offense went 1 of 5 in the red zone tonight. Otherwise, this game would have been a complete rout, right? The Eagles were the number 1 red zone team in the NFL, 70+%. 1 of 5 tonight. They haven't been below 50% in a game this year, although the qualifier there is they didn't reach the red zone last week against the Saints. So this is a game that if it quickly breaks open much earlier if they get 7 points instead of 3 on some of those trips. That's the way I saw it.
Yeah.
And
also
then
a touchdown called back for a legal man downfield
Yeah.
penalty right before Jalen Hurts threw an interception in the end zone. So
the defense was fine. They didn't really play against anyone.
Super vanilla on both sides of the ball.
Yeah. Broke down a little bit in the second half, but again, overall, actually thought special teams was one of the better units tonight. They totally sniffed out that fake field goal.
That's true.
They were ready for that, or I don't know if they were ready for the onside kick, but they recovered 2 onside kicks. So
it's a good point.
Yeah. And then Jake Elliott, I don't have the numbers, but I've covered his whole career. I don't believe he's had a 5 field goal game in his career. Is that right?
I don't know.
Yeah, I would have to look that up. So overall,
he had one once in a 14-game season, so it doesn't count.
Jake Elliott didn't play in a 14-game season unless we go back to, I don't even know if he played one in Memphis because, were they in the Conference USA? I don't know. Sorry. So a good special teams performance tonight. And
Except for Brett Kern.
Except for him?
Yeah, he's got no leg.
Yeah, Brett Kern. Yeah, that's true. But he's a heck of a holder.
Yeah, he can really hold that ball. Say what you will, but he can hold it.
So I see the question here. Is Sitbus done for the year? If you notice on Sirianni's visor, last week he had the 8 on it, and usually the number on the visor signifies that the guy's out for the year.
We've seen him in a walking boot, but
yeah. Although Lane Johnson's number was on the visor last year, and Lane returned. So
that's fair. I think the biggest thing to talk about on defense, Zach, 2 things. One, we saw Robert Quinn. He was a little bit more active than usual, but I don't think we can take too much from that. The biggest thing we saw was that Chauncey Gardner-Johnson returned to the defense after 5 weeks out with a lacerated kidney. And we were debating what we were going to see in the nickel defense. Was it going to be Gardner-Johnson back at safety and Josiah Scott at nickel? Or were they going to rotate and put Gardner-Johnson back in his normal nickel position where he played for the Saints and leave Reed Blankenship at safety? And the latter is what they did. And I think that makes sense. And I give Jonathan Gannon credit for not being like too myopic and doing what is the best in service of getting the best 11 guys on the field. It's hard to say like whether it was great in this game because they were playing such a mediocre offense, but I thought it made sense. And it's also, I think, worth getting a look at this ahead of the playoffs because you already know, like you've seen Gardner-Johnson and Josiah Scott in the same defense before. You have not seen this. You have not tested Gardner-Johnson as a nickel in this defense. And we don't know what Avonte Maddox's status is. I think there's a chance he could be ready for that game. The fact that he has not been placed on injured reserve would tell us that the Eagles are hoping that he'll be back by that game, or at least near that game. But if he's not available, I would expect that we will see this same Blankenship Gardner-Johnson combination.
So I disagree with you to an extent, and I actually don't think Josiah Scott's been as bad as maybe the public perception is of him. I
don't think he's been terrible either.
Yeah, I think look, the 3rd and 30 was horrible, and there are plays in man coverage this year when he just can't hang. Right. But I actually think he's been like fine, right? And
I think so too. He's been a fine backup nickel.
Yeah. He's in the right spot. So
but I think Reed Blankenship has been good.
I was a bit surprised to see that, but as you framed it, I think there's a lot of validity to what you said. You want to see that look, right? Because if Maddox is not back, you might say like, and we've discussed this, you're going to see some good slot receivers potentially in the postseason. Do you have the matchups that you want there? And the matchup might be better with Gardner-Johnson. I don't think Blankenship's been like terrific. But yeah, I mean, if you're looking at it from a matchup perspective, Gardner-Johnson could be is probably a better cover guy in the slot than Josiah is.
And interesting to see that they only played one snap of dime in this game, but it was Kayvon Wallace as the 6th defensive back, not Josiah Scott, on the field. And also it was TJ Edwards as the lone linebacker, not Kaiser White, which it has not been. And we remember that Jonathan Gannon said they learned a little something from that 3rd and 30 about the communication. And so
to your question,
for this game, at least, it was TJ Edwards and not Kaiser White getting the
Did
call.
You get a good question, Bo, on that one?
I don't know.
Yeah, probably did. Yeah.
I'm not in it for the good question, Bo, Zach. I'm in it for the answers. I'm in it for the truth.
well, that is the truth. That's how it should be.
Anything else about this game that matters?
Yeah, I mean, we talked about the red zone. I don't think that can be emphasized enough, and that was Nick Sirianni's big takeaway there. But I think a part of that is not having Jalen's threat to run, and is that's such a difference in the red zone, right?
It's the whole thing.
And so I think a lot of it had to do with that. I know. I shouldn't say I know. As I was walking to the car tonight, I was going through like Twitter mentions, and I saw there's some angst about the offensive line situation and the blocking tonight. I don't know for sure if Lane Johnson's going to be back, but my guess is now that they got the bye, there's a far better chance Lane Johnson's back. I can't tell you that Lane's going to look like he does like he does usually, playing with a bad injury, but I think that will fundamentally change the offensive line getting him back.
Yeah, I think my big takeaway is just that, this has been, by many measures, the best regular season in franchise history. It's probably the best roster I've ever seen. All of their moves from the offseason have panned out fantastically. Hassan Reddick, 16 sacks. A.J. Brown sets the franchise record for receiving yards in a season. James Bradbury has been awesome. C.J. Gardner-Johnson tied for the lead in interceptions. It's hard to even think of a player who is a contributor on the roster who didn't exceed the preseason expectations for him.
I mean, even Devontae, by the way, like
right.
95 catches, 1,200 yards, 7 touchdowns. That's a big time line for a wide receiver.
Fantastic.
Right? Yeah.
And he had like the sharpest outfit. That hat he was wearing is the coolest thing I've ever seen.
With the Louisiana. Yeah, I saw.
So cool.
I think the one guy whose numbers probably weren't what I expected them to be, but they are on a per game basis, is Dallas Goedert, because he missed time this year, right?
Right.
But on a per game basis, best of his career. I don't know what it finished up as, but going into this game,
for you to focus on per game numbers, okay.
Going into this game, well, so I spoke to Dallas this week. Going into this game, had the top catch percentage and had the top yards per catch of his career. And he said those were like 2 of the 3 stats that he pays the most attention to. He said catch percentage, yards per catch, and yards after catch. And he said, like, since he's been here, he's never been like, he's not going to be targeted the way other tight ends are. So he kind of looks at those stats maybe more than receptions and yards, even though he says everyone wants to get 1,000 yards and 100 catches. But I see, Jim, the reason I use per game stats there is I was talking about Dallas Goedert's numbers relative to what I expected this year. And I think Dallas is playing the best he's played since he's been here.
Right.
But you can't see
That's
that
what
based on
matters.
the numbers. Yes.
And so with all of that, it has been a great ride, but none of it matters now. It's all about how they perform in the playoffs. If they don't make the Super Bowl, it's a disappointing season.
I
given
disagree.
where they are.
I disagree.
I really think that.
I think championship game. I think if they don't make the championship game, it's a disappointing season. I think that look,
you lose at home in the NFC Championship game.
It's disappointing, but it's disappointing. But okay, in the context of like your second year with this head coach quarterback combination, to make the NFC Championship game is a major accomplishment, right? Like that to me.
But you are here now. You have been the best team in the conference all year long. You have the road ahead, and there are no guarantees. We talk like this. This is such a fallacy that like, oh, we're ahead of schedule now. They have a ton of free agents. The coaching staff is going to change. You cannot expect that everybody who got better this year is going to get better again next year. Like the locker room dynamics change. There is no real consistency. All that matters is having a franchise level quarterback, and it seems like the Eagles probably have that. And so their window is going to be open. But there are no guarantees. This is your opportunity. This is your chance.
The opportunity is it's as good an opportunity as they. I can't imagine a better opportunity than this, being the 1 seed in this conference this year, when the number 2 seed, like I said, has an unproven rookie quarterback. They're on their third stringer. Okay. That's an inviting opportunity. I'm not disputing that. I just think that and I'm all for I'm all for high expectations, right? Like, I think that's as not for a lighter burden as for broader shoulders, right? Like I firmly believe that. But I also think that
it's broad shoulders.
I also think that it's so hard to make the Super Bowl. To say that the season is, can I put words in your mouth? The season is a failure if you don't make the Super Bowl.
Maybe that's a little strong, but
yeah, like that
I think
to me is a stretch.
I think we can debate like what measures success, but I think what I'm really trying to say is that this team will be judged by how they perform in the playoffs. That is
100%.
Like everything that this team is so good that the regular season doesn't matter. What happens next is what they will be remembered for, and how we will judge them, and how we will think about them both in the past and moving forward.
I hear you're making
if the Niners come out and are just this unbelievable juggernaut and come in here and win the game and then go win the Super Bowl. Okay, like you know what, you change the judging, right? Yeah. But this team is so good and so talented and has such a unique opportunity that what happens now is what matters. We are here now. Everything else was preamble.
You're making a very valid argument. Like it's a perfectly legitimate argument. I just think like when the Eagles lost to the Bucks in the NFC Championship game, when you lost to the Panthers in the NFC Championship game, that was a fail. That was a disappointing season. Those were Super Bowl or bust years essentially. When they lost to the Rams, and I understand it's a different context. They weren't the top seed. They were on the road against the Rams. Same thing like when they lost to the Cardinals. So I guess considering because they're the top seed, because they have the best record in the NFL, you're expecting it. I just think that this is like their first time going this deep. There's so much that's like unproven with this team. And I never want to say it's a year too soon, because like you said, that window could close. I saw that Joe Burrow quote today, and it was great, where he said, he said the window's his career, right? The Eagles once thought that about Carson Wentz. There's so much that could occur. I just have a hard time saying that unless they make the Super Bowl, it's disappointing because it is so hard to make the Super Bowl. But again, we're arguing semantics, and we need to see what the context is these next few weeks, right?
All right. Well, speaking of dominant regular seasons, that will inevitably come down to judgment based on what happens in the playoffs. Let's talk about Swooper Scorecasting. Bo Wulf comes in with 8 points, Zach with 4, Marissa 2, and this was a 1 point at stake week. Bo had Javon Hargrave sets an Eagles season record for sacks for a defensive tackle. He needed 1 full sack to do it. Did not happen. A.J. Brown breaks Mike Quick's single season record for most receiving yards by an Eagle. Spent 20 turkeys, made it happen. The Eagles and Commanders outscore the Giants and Cowboys. Both teams won, so that's a win for me, 2 for me. Marissa, we had Jalen Hurts together, has at least 1 rushing attempt, which is not a scramble, a kneel down, or sack. Zach was going to have to flip a coin for this, but it didn't happen. So,
right.
I mean, I guess we should still flip the coin to see who lost it, but no points going on for this one. Yeah, flip it.
Or is Zach supposed to do it?
Well, he's supposed to, but there are no stakes anymore. So,
and then I have a coin. So,
okay.
All right, I'll say heads.
Okay. Heads.
Nice. Okay. So 2 for me. Marissa, Tyrod Taylor has more rushing attempts than Jalen Hurts. Tough loss there.
Yeah.
An Eagles player who didn't play last week has a touchdown, non-passing, an interception, a sack, a forced fumble, or a fumble recovery. You had a good shot here, but unfortunately that did not happen either.
Yep.
You did, before the game, get both Janarius Robinson and 1 other Eagles player are placed on injured reserve before the game. On Saturday, Sean Bradley joining Janarius Robinson on injured reserve, a point for Marissa. The Giants convert at least 3 third or fourth downs on quarterback runs. I don't think that happened.
I didn't either, but
there was the one
better stat books than I do.
Yeah, I don't believe that happened. And a prominent member of the BWF community announces a major life event. Did that happen?
Check.
So many texts about that, by the way, Marissa. So like you're so beloved by the audience.
I really appreciate everyone's it means so much to me. So I'm very grateful for everything nice that everyone had to say. It was really awesome. And huge shout out to Denise, because that was so perfect. Like I said, I've been thinking about this since I found out. So the fact that he pulled that off in that fashion was pretty awesome. So
I am curious, since you're gracious about how kind everyone's being. How do you feel about the charity of just getting a point?
Oh, I feel great about it. I was I'm going to use this to my advantage.
And your
I was
turkey's
going
pardoned?
to wait. I was going to wait to use this in the playoffs, so it was a 2-point game, but I just couldn't wait 2 more weeks. So that's why I was even going to be worse, waiting to get more overall points because I'm so far behind in Swooper. This baby is going to be so competitive between me and Michael. It's actually a little scary. My mom has told us that we're both going to need to, take a step back because we both are a little unhealthy how competitive we are. So
this is what is going to lead to the biological advancement of men being able to conceive children, because Zach is going to go to the tape and realize that all he needs to do to win a point is get pregnant. And so he's going to figure out a way to do it. Where there's a will, there's a way. This is all the millions of years of human history. It's all come down to this for Zach.
I gotta say, and I haven't been the husband of a pregnant woman twice. I'm not envious of that situation at all. So
you sacrificed the Swooper point.
Yeah. So yeah, Swooper's not that big a deal compared to what they have to go through.
All right. So 2 for each of us, Marissa. Zach, the Eagles clinched the number 1 seed, a leftover from Week 17. That's 1. The combined number of snaps played by Gardner Minshew, Ian Book, and Davis Webb is greater than the number of snaps played by Robert Quinn. This was a contested bid. He got it.
I'm
Well,
so
don't
glad
lie.
this one worked
You
out.
should be
exactly.
grateful that
Yeah.
I put Davis Webb in there in the first place. You're welcome. You're welcome for giving you the bid. 2 for you.
Honestly, ball don't lie. That's my feeling on that one.
The Eagles scored touchdowns on back-to-back possessions. Didn't happen. And the Eagles set the NFL record for sacks in a season. Did not happen. A 3-way 2-2 tie. Talk about a real ball don't lie. And that means that I believe the next Swooper will be in the divisional round. That'll be a 2-point week plus the 1-point carryover. So it'll be a 3-point week. All of a sudden, things are getting a little tight for your boy with a 4-point lead.
I like it. Make it a little more interesting down the stretch. We could do this, Zach. We got to buckle down,
Yeah,
watch the film over the next 2 weeks, and we got him.
I hope so. But it's as long as it's interesting here.
Yeah.
Okay. Now all of a sudden you're as long as it's interesting. Okay. All right. Anything else to talk about?
No. So I mean, you mentioned the schedule next week. The other thing that I should acknowledge here is that you're going to see some coach dismissals during the next 24, 48 hours. You
Very
already
funny
saw-
graphic tweeted out by the Texans. Thank you, Lovey.
Yeah. So
What a
right
great
now,
what a great FU out the door by Levy Smith, going for 2 to win that game, costing them the number 1 pick. Just delicious.
So right now there are 3 openings. Coincidentally, 2 of the openings are teams that interviewed Jonathan Gannon twice last year, right? Denver and Houston.
Good point.
So I imagine with the way Shane Steichen coached this year, and with the way the Eagles' offense have gone, he's going to be a popular candidate. Brian Johnson could very well get some under the radar interest. He's done a terrific job as the quarterback's coach here. So certainly something to watch on the Eagles' end. I know there's some new rules around timing of interviews. I don't want to say that on the pod before checking at, before confirming it, but you might see the Eagles in the news a bit this week for those reasons. And then I'm glad you mentioned the number 10 pick. It's worth watching Georgia tomorrow night. The Eagles have drafted their first round pick has been from the national champion the past 2 years, and they've drafted players from the national champions the past 2 years. And that Georgia defense is absolutely loaded. Keely Ringo is someone who excels in zone defenses, more so probably than man. I don't know what type of defense the Eagles are going to run next year, but that's probably the range that Ringo might go in. So something to watch there.
Look at you trying to drum up interest in Ringo.
I think the date was January 17th too. They had that's what they said for Sean Payton, that he can't interview in person until January 17th. So it's probably after this next round.
So Sean Payton, so it's
I don't know if that's just him.
Well, so the interesting thing with Sean Payton, because the rules are based on coaches who are employed by teams or unemployed by teams. And I think he's technically considered employed by a team because he's under contract. So I don't know how that factors into it. But like, for instance, I saw a report that Jim Caldwell's interviewing for the Colts
Panthers.
job.
I thought it was Panthers.
Yeah, that's his Panthers job. I'm sorry. He's already coached the Colts. And he's not employed by a team. So I think he's kind of fair game. Yeah. So
any of the Eagles guys would count as, being employed.
Yeah, but I think teams with a first round bye, there's like a window there. So again, we'll get all the information this week and we'll have it for the next pod in terms of when they can interview.
Yeah, and we'll see what openings there are tomorrow.
Yeah.
Or throughout the week.
Right. Or a week later if there's a team like the 2020 Eagles.
It's true. Which worked out well for all sides, I guess. I mean, I think Doug Peterson's got a good thing going down in Jacksonville, right? So, and the Eagles obviously are the best team in the NFL here.
You like Trevor Lawrence?
I do. Do you not?
I think he's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah. I've been having some debates with my friends about that game the other night, even though he missed a couple throws. I think he's really, really good.
Yeah, that one at the end of the first half in the back of the end zone, he had to hit that. But I think he's really good, and I think he has the right demeanor too. I think that team's really promising. Like they're gonna get better, and for all the gruff that, if I'm using that word correctly, that the Jags got for Christian Kirk, he's an 1,100-yard receiver this year, right?
Probably a 60-catch season, which matters more.
Yeah, far above that.
Do you hold on? Let me just ask you a quick question here. Let me do the math. Okay, so the new standard for you should be 63.75 catch season.
So 64 catch season.
If you could have a 64 catch season,
okay.
Or if the league is willing to give out three-quarters of a catch, that for you, just so you know, is going to be your new
64 catch season. Okay. All right. I will do the buckets as you do for the draft on 64 catch season receivers. I do have a quick question for you related to today. And you were following it on the TV in front of you. Texans have that dramatic comeback, clinch the number 2 pick, right? They lose the number 1 pick. I saw a tweet from Mike Tannenbaum that the Bears now have to decide, are they going to trade Justin Fields and draft Bryce Young, or
I think they should do that.
Keep Justin Fields. Yeah,
that's what they should do.
Yeah, yes. Is that what you would do?
Yes.
Okay.
I mean, I would see what the offers are for both covertly, but I think that's what I would do.
Wow, I didn't hear that today. That would make things interesting.
Because I think you might be able to fool someone and give you more for Fields. I mean, that's not, it's maybe fool is not the right phrase, but then you're getting 2 extra years of control, like who are a player who, I think might be better.
I like if I was the Falcons, okay, and Falcons are I mean, they went 7-10, so they're drafting where? If I was the Falcons, I would be all over 8. That. Yeah, I would be all over that.
For Fields.
Yeah.
Yeah. But what could you?
I mean,
because if you deal the pick, you're going to be able to stay towards the top. Like Houston might give you a lot. Indy's at 4. They would give you a lot, right? So you're going to still get probably one of like Will Anderson or Jalen Carter. Whereas if you trade Fields to Atlanta, you take the quarterback, you're not getting quite as good of a player at 8.
Yeah.
I mean, it depends on what all the.
But you reset the clock too. So
right. Well, yeah, but that's why maybe send him to the Colts. Jeff Saturday could do a whole lot with him.
I mean, if you're the Colts, you're in position to draft C.J. Stroud or so.
Are you?
Are they drafting 3?
They're
Colts?
4.
Oh, they're 4. Who's 3?
Arizona. We should also think about drafting a quarterback.
That's a fascinating one. This is going to be an interesting year.
All right.
And Dane Brugler will have all draft coverage online at the Prospects to Pros on the Athletic Football Show feed every Wednesday. So he's just getting started with all the Dane coverage. So be sure to tune in.
All right. Well, the Eagles have done it. They sort of limped to the finish line, but they got there anyway. They are 14-3, the best regular season in franchise history. And now it is all ahead of them. The number 1 seed, a week off, home field advantage, and a pretty weak conference. So we'll see what happens. But it's going to be an exciting couple weeks. So for Zach and Marissa and the Chief Hawks, whatever it was that I said, we thank you for listening. We will talk to you later this week as the Eagles prepare for no opponent this weekend. For watching. For all of us, we thank all of you, especially the live sickos in the chat. And as always, we love you.